We have 18 grandchildren. One has accompanied us tonight, Linda, grandchild. It's great to see a nice crowd. This is wonderful. Coming out to listen to a political speech, you know, on a night when you could be watching the news on the MSNBC, you know. Wow, thank you very much. Now, well, I'll tell you what, there's something very big going on in this country. I've always thought it would come. I always thought it would be related to the economy. It would be related to spending. And deep down in my heart, when I first started in politics, I believed it would be related to the monetary issue. And I believe this is what's happening. I mean, I hear it in the crowds wherever I go. It's the first time in 100 years that the Federal Reserve has become a political issue. It should have been a political issue in 1913. It should have never been established. And I'm delighted you know about it. It's a biblical issue. Remember reading in the Old Testament about honest weights and measures and the 10 Commandments about honesty and not lying? Well, this is what the monetary system is all about, is lying and cheating and false weights and measures. And this problem has been around for a long time, even in the Roman Empire and before. Debasement of the currency. The stronger the government, the more control they have over the money. And control over the money means they want to create the money. They don't want the marketplace to create it. They don't want the people to be in charge of it. The reason that the big government people detest gold is because they have power if they can create the money out of thin air. Then they get to distribute it to their friends, and who gets the disadvantages? The people get the disadvantages. And when you destroy a currency, you destroy the middle class. That's what's happening in this country. That's why we have to address the subject of honest money. But the irony of all this is that the bigger the government, the more powerful the government, the more control they have over the money. But the irony is, it's what brings the governments down. The governments that do this, they think they're too big. They can extend themselves around the world. And just look at what we're doing today. We have an empire around the world. We're in 130 countries. We have 900 bases. And they're not hesitating one bit to go look for more trouble to get into. Right now, they're thinking we don't have enough wars going on. So we're very much involved in the civil strife and the civil war going on in Syria. But if we look at honest money, if we look at our Constitution and a sensible foreign policy, we wouldn't be looking for more wars. We would be looking to stop these wars. We would be looking to bring our troops home. I always found it interesting in the debates. A lot of times they'll announce that we'll have a debate, and they say, tonight we're going to talk about economics, and then they come up with economic issues, and the next time, well, next week we'll have a debate on foreign policy. But you can't separate the two. If you're involved in foreign policy and you're running up this debt, you're putting on sanctions and interfering with trade, and you have all these imbalances going on, and you spend this money and run up the debt, and you print more money, that is economics. That is an economic problem, so you can't separate the two. And this is where we are today. We have bankrupted ourselves. And ironically, if you read and study exactly what those leaders of Al-Qaeda, including bin Laden, said, he was anxious to do was get us drawn into fighting wars and occupying Muslim countries in order to bankrupt us as a nation and to divide us as a nation. And just look at how we've fallen into the trap. And it just seems like there isn't a country that we can't go into. Now we have declared war against the world. Any place we suspect that anybody could exist that dislikes us, that we have to drop drone missiles on them and start killing people. And that is not what the founders taught. That is not what the Constitution says. That is not what was advised. The advice of the founders was that we try our best to talk to people We try our best to trade with people. We try our best to be friends with people. If we need to fight with people, if we are attacked, there's a provision in the Constitution for that. The states weren't to take that subject and that responsibility upon themselves. It was to be the responsibility of the people to make the decision between the voting members of the Congress. If we have a true enemy, as we did in World War II, you declare the war and you win the war and you come home. It's so hard for me to understand why people don't understand this, although I'm very pleased that more and more people are beginning to understand this message. But in World War II, we were attacked by the Japanese, and the Germans declared war against us in less than 4 years. That whole war was won. And here we've been in Afghanistan for 11 years. And now that the information is coming out from the military, people willing to speak out, that we're not doing so well over there. And just think of the cost to us, the cost in lives. If you add up all the people that have died in the Mideastern wars in the last 10 years, and the contractors, we've lost 8,500 Americans. But we've had 44,000 Americans come home. Americans come home with severe injuries and amputations and blindness, brain injuries. And also, we have hundreds of thousands now begging and pleading for help. We have an epidemic of suicide in our military personnel coming home. And that is all a cost. And to think that this was done in an unconstitutional manner, we cannot put our head in the sand and pretend that these wars are being fought to preserve liberty and preserve our Constitution. We know that we take an oath of office to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Right now, today, we have a greater threat against our liberties by our domestic threat more than any chance of anybody invading this country. We were blessed to live in a great country, the richest country ever, the largest middle class ever, but it's not that way today. If we are honest with ourselves, we will say the middle class is shrinking, the country's poorer, the very productive jobs have gone overseas. We have a currency, although it is still being trusted by many in the world and accepting the dollar as a currency. We all know that the credit of this country has been downgraded, will be downgraded soon, and ultimately the market will do the downgrading because eventually people will demand more dollars. Even today, the prices of goods that we export, the prices that we import right now have been going up 8% a year, and our Federal Reserve and our Treasury say, oh, there's no inflation going on, there's no price inflation. What they do when the price inflation seems to be more than they want it to be, they change how they calculate the price inflation. You know, it's all deception. But we have allowed ourselves to drift a long way from what we were given. That great country where we had this maximum freedom, respected civil liberties, respected property rights, respected other countries, and still we're a strong nation. Now we are not an exceptional nation. We are a nation that is slipping away, and it's not all that complicated. We just have too often the people who have represented us have not had the determination, the understanding, and the commitment to liberty. That is what this country should be all about. Yeah. We must understand a little bit more about liberty. We understand it generally, but we have to know where it comes from. It doesn't come from our government. It doesn't come from our neighbors. It doesn't come from anybody else. We don't give it to ourselves, but it is a gift. It's a gift from our Creator. We get our... We get our life and our liberty from our Creator, and it should follow that if you have a right to your life and a right to your liberty, you ought to have the right to keep the fruits of your labor.